on to things that I really enjoy. Like TV shows, I saw a lot of great TV shows in 2024. So many great TV shows that I was able to put together a top 10 best TV shows list. This includes both live action TV shows and cartoon and animated TV shows, along with some honorable mentions as well. And I don't have as many honorable mentions as I did for my best movies of 2024, because we'd be here all night. We'd be here for like another 2.5 hours, so I definitely don't want to do that. But I did want to mention three shows that I enjoyed. The first of which is House of the Dragon Season 2. I think the first 4 episodes of House of the Dragon Season 2 were great. It was a wonderful mixture of drama, the political intrigue, politics in general, the backstabbing, some great monologues and just like individual scenes of just great back and forth between actors, like Reza Fons, him just talking down to the king, his nephew, trifling, doing all that was great. But then all that mixed with the spectacle. Like episode 4 of season 2, which involved that incredible land battle, castle siege, and dragon battle of all those dragons with Aemon Targaryen's Vhagar, and then you had the queen that never was, and then you had Aegon the second coming in there and just messing everything up. Like, incredible. Like, all that money was put in that episode, and it looked gorgeous. But then it was made all the better because you had those first 3 episodes and the first half of episode 4 that with all that great drama and writing and just back and forth between all these characters that just led to that powder keg and finally exploding. And like, all right, we're at the Targaryen Civil War. It was so good. And then and then you had the back half of season 2, and I felt like they really dropped the ball, which is so disappointing and so upsetting, because I thought, like, wow, this is gonna be like up there with one of the best seasons of Game of Thrones. And I feel like because they were more restricted with their budget, because they got a lower episode count, that I think really affected the back half of those episodes. I mean, the fucking season was kind of building towards like another epic battle, between all these sides, and finally mustering all their forces, and now we gotta wait like 3 fucking years for that to happen, and it's going to start in the beginning of the season. It's going to be very awkward, and so that was very frustrating. Very, very frustrating, and I love the first half, but man, that second half, like, really bothered me. And it delivered, like, one of the most disappointing finales of this year. For me personally, but I got to give it to him. Those first 4 episodes I thought were excellent, and that 4th episode, it was wonderful. It was beautiful, delivered on every single level. My other honorable mention is Squid Game 2. So I've not finished with Squid Game 2. I have seen, I guess at this point, like maybe 2/3 of the season so far. And listen, what I loved about the original Squid Game was how it crafted tension. Like, taking, like, all these characters, putting them into these seemingly innocent games, and then revealing just how deadly they are, and them trying to figure out how we going to get out of this. And then, of course, having all these back and forths, all the backstabbing between all these people, whether they were teamed up or whether they weren't. Like, that's when Squid Game, to me, was at its best. It was just so great. And Squid Game 2, I've definitely been enjoying, because it has that. It has been able to create these wonderful scenes of tension, different types of games as well, and also reuniting of characters from the original season that maybe didn't get much to do. Now they expand on the roles a little bit, which is pretty cool. I will say, though, they are repeating a lot of the same things from season 1, like kind of similar characters and just like plot points, and it's kind of weird. and a little frustrating, because I just want them to, like, I understand you're going to bring in some of, like, I mean, sure, we're going to bring in some iconic games everyone loved from the first season, but they're like, they literally have, like, a new character who is just kind of like a copy of another character we saw from the first season. This is not that character, it's just a copy of them, and that's a little weird. I still have to finish it. I've heard apparently that it leaves off on a big cliffhanger, and I know season 3 is coming out this year in 2025, but yeah, I expect a little bit more, but at least so far, I am enjoying myself. I am digging it for the most part, despite my qualms. And the last one I want to mention is Agatha All Along, a series that I think a lot of us had a lot of misgivings about. You know, the sequel spinoff of WandaVision, which is one of the MCU's best TV shows, one of my favorites, right next to, in terms of the live action ones, next to Loki. But, so I was kind of going in there, be like, I don't know what to expect of this. Although, I do like Kathryn Hahn as Agatha. She was great. She was one of the best things about WandaVision. And I have to admit, guys, I was really surprised by how much I enjoyed Agatha All Along. I thought it had a really good first start. Kind of in the middle, I was like, all right, where are you going with this? But then I would say, from episodes, like, the last 3 or 4 episodes, I was really impressed with. And where they actually had some stakes, and where they actually were bold enough to kill off some characters in a great way, but give them a proper send-off. I ended up really enjoying it. I think it's one of the stronger, it's one of the better MCU live-action shows. I mean, it's up there with, like, unlike a lot of the finales for some other big shows, Marvel shows that is, I feel like it pretty much nails it. And also exploring Agatha Harkness, and also the fact that they don't really say like, well, you know, we're making her a hero. It's like, nah, nah, she's still a son of a bitch. And I like that about it. It has a bit of a hard edge, more than you would think. And that made me happy. I ended up really, really liking the show. And for a long time, it was on my top 10 list. But it just got kicked out from a couple other things. But listen, if you had as many misgivings about Agatha All Along as I did, give it a shot because it's pretty fun, has some really good moments, great moments of tension, and some really impressive performances throughout the season. But moving on from my honorable mentions, let's go ahead and I got so many things here. Let's go ahead and jump into my top 10 best TV shows of 2024. Some of these shows that I brought up and reviewed for you guys, other ones that I think are going to really surprise you because I ended up kind of watching them just, by myself and just had a lot of fun with them. And at number 10, and I am very surprised to say this, chat, but I was very charmed by it. At number 10, I have Ted. I have the sequel, prequel TV series Ted. Now, I really enjoyed Seth MacFarlane's first film, Ted. I thought it was great where you have a character who wishes his teddy bear was alive, and then one, night, their wish is granted, and the teddy bear comes to life. But then it's like, okay, you have that. It's whimsical and stuff. But, like, what happens if that teddy bear is just with you for the next 20 years? And we got that movie, and apparently the bear just becomes like a piece of shit. He becomes your best friend, and he's got your back constantly, but, he's smoking a lot of weed, he's drinking a lot of beer, and he's banging a lot of whores, a lot of hookers, a lot of prostitutes. And they did the sequel. I thought the sequel was okay. But, and the show, I was like, I don't know. The trailers, I thought, like, there's some funny moments here. However, I gotta say, Ted, it takes the best parts of the original movie and expands on them. Also, it kind of reminded me of early, like, Family Guy seasons, like back in the late 90s and early 2000s when Family Guy was like, whoa, so fresh and original. It was like a harder edge Simpsons. It just felt like Seth MacFarlane and his writers were, like, really inspired. And I don't want to spoil it out because it's a comedy. I don't want to ruin the jokes, but there are some great comedic gags in this and scenes and some wonderful lines too. Obviously, Seth MacFarlane, he returns to voice Ted, and I forget the kid who plays the younger version of Mark Wahlberg. He doesn't just do like a Mark Wahlberg impression. He's very much his own character. I really liked him, and again, him and Ted have a great rapport. I also really love the sister in the show. she was a great element in the series. This was kind of one of my biggest surprises in terms of TV this year. And again, they got him. I love that line. The Deadpool brings up a line. They got him. It's like, they got him. What do you mean they got him? I love that Indian kid. He used to give me his hoo-hoos or something. He used to give me his Twinkies, but they got him. So what do you mean? that like that. It's like, what do you mean? It's funny. It's really funny. I was taken aback how much I enjoyed it. It's a hilarious show. But moving on from Ted. Again, is some stuff I'm actually still watching. This show hasn't wrapped up yet. There's one more episode left, but I've been really enjoying, and you guys know I love DC animation in general. But at 9, I have Creature Commandos, and this is technically the first entry into James Gunn's and Peter Safran's DCU. It's also just a spiritual successor and really a continuation of the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, tonally, aesthetically, where, I mean, this essentially is the Suicide Squad called Task Force M, for monsters, and where Rick Flag Sr., the father of Rick Flag, is the leader of these various monsters, these various beings with powers. You have the Bride, who's very much the Bride of Frankenstein. You have Weasel, who returns from surviving the events of the Suicide Squad. You have G.I. Robot, who is this Nazi killing, loving robot, loves murdering Nazis. You basically have a female version, the Creature of the Black Lagoon, called Nina Gilgal. She's adorable. I love her. You have Dr. Phosphorus, who reminds me of Blight from Batman Beyond, where he has like these nuclear powers, and various other characters as well. And they're sent on this mission to this fictional country to protect this princess, but then some more crazy stuff, happens, and, chaos obviously ensues, as you would expect with a series so heavily inspired by the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker. But it features great animation. You have great voice acting across the board. One of the things I really love about this show is it does a lot of flashbacks to all of these, people before they were a part of the Creature Commandos. And more often than not, they just had these really tragic backstories as to, why they are in the circumstances that they are in right now. And they're all great. My favorite so far has definitely been G.I. Robot. Plus, it's just also a nice little, peek into different eras of the DCU. For example, of G.I. Robot, where we see pretty much what a World War II James Gunn DC film is going to look like, where with characters like Sergeant Rock and them murdering a whole bunch of Nazis. It's really good. And there's a lot of heart. That's the other thing about this show. It's like, yes, the animation's great, it's sexy as hell. All the men and women are just hot, but it has that heart, as so many of James Gunn's works do. But it has that mean-spiritedness too. Like, some of these characters, may or may not die throughout these episodes, and I like that. So far, again, there's the finale is later this week as of this recording, but these first 6 episodes I've really, really enjoyed, and I recommend, if you're a fan of DC animation, DCAU, stuff like that, give this show a shot. I think you're gonna end up liking, and especially if you enjoyed Peacemaker and the Suicide Squad, not Suicide Squad, the Suicide Squad. But I have some more animated stuff on here. At number 8, I have Hell of a Boss. Now, as you guys know, I'm a big fan of Vizzy Pop and her creations. She, of course, is known for Has-Been Hotel, which is one of the thing that I think really blew up for her. Which the whole idea of that is, all right, you have the daughter of Lucifer who wants to establish a hotel to help singers and redeem them in order for them to go to heaven. This is kind of the sister series, where instead of it having like a major through line, I guess it does have a major through line, but this follows some of the Desinins of hell. These imps who run their own business called Improvised Murder Professionals, which is a great acronym. And really, this whole show, even though it does have like a thorough line and goes into the politics, conspiracies in hell, but it's more about focusing on these characters, relationships, the day-to-day kind of grind. It's like, what if it's like hell, but Office Space? That's how I would describe a lot of this, and the day-to-day Monday tasks of the job, but also, trying to better yourself at the same time, and, work on yourself and try to make your partner and your relationships with them work. And season 2, I think, is even better than season 1. One, the animation. I mean, again, I'm a huge sucker for 2D animation, and this is very much that. It looks great, has a great color palette. I really like how they expand on a number of the characters, especially Blitz, who is a character who has had a lot of issues, especially if you watch the show, and he's involved with basically this royal of hell, and that becomes incredibly complicated. And they have a huge back and forth throughout the series. But then you also have these like really cute characters in the series as well. Like you have this adorable couple. Millie and Moxie are kind of like the ideal, marriage. Then you have some great other supporting characters in this. Like they have a hellhound who's the daughter of Blitzo, and she's kind of like a goth werewolf chick, and she's pretty cool. You have a ton of other like tertiary and supporting characters throughout the show. Like you get to see like all the sins personified from lust to greed to pride and to wrath to gluttony. It's a really cool aesthetic. And I know that the humor of this show is not for everyone. I know not everyone likes the songs. Like, it's very much a show that's heavily inspired by the Disney Renaissance era. So if you grew up watching Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast, Little Mermaid, all those stuff. But what if you took that and those sensibilities and aesthetics, but you made it like rated R, made it like a crass comedy, but still has a lot of heart. That's what Hell of a Boss would be with its focus on relationships. And I really, really love this show, and I'm very excited for season 3. Plus, my girlfriend and I, we watch it all the time. She absolutely adores it. She loves it. She's always, every time there's a new episode, which they debuted a lot of episodes, like this year, like the end of every month, plus these little mini-sodes. And she's like, there's a new episode, we're going to watch it? I'm like, yeah, I'm finishing this. She's like, we're going to watch this now. I'm like, okay, we're going to watch it now. So it's pretty cute, pretty adorable. And I really like the show. And speaking of, Hell of a Boss, it just makes sense. I should have Has Been Hotel up here too, which is, you had the original pilot, which came out years ago, which, as I explained during my little Hell of a Boss section, it focuses on the daughter of the King of Hell, of Lucifer Morningstar. Focus on his daughter, Charlie, and she runs basically the self-help hotel with her girlfriend, Vaggie. And she has all these other people that work there too with her to try to redeem sinners. At the same time, they have this like major kind of through line where every year the forces of heaven come down and exterminate the sinners of hell, because hell's population just keeps growing and growing and growing exponentially like every single year. And they moved up that time frame, so they're going to do it every 6 months. And so she's just trying to prove to heaven that her hotel can work and that she can actually redeem sinners, and they don't have to like kill all of these people. They don't have to do effectively this genocide, this purge. And much like Hell of a Boss, I really like the aesthetics of this show. I love the way it looks. I love the 2D animation. The songs are incredible. There are some great ones. And this is one of my favorite animated characters in quite some time, Alistair the Radio Demon, who's this very powerful demon overlord who's in hell, who wants to assist Charlie, although you don't really know his reasonings as to why. He says like, for the laughs of it all. It's kind of like that's his whole vibe, for the utter mayhem. And he talks of a transatlantic accent, and he has like a radio effect layered on top of his voice. Really unique design. And I much to your guys' chagrin, I wouldn't stop talking about this show. I was showing you guys the songs before, back when this show, I think, premiered like in late January of 2024 and then into February. And I did an absolute blast with this. I had the biggest smile on my face every single episode. There is the songs are great. I was listening to them and watching the videos like over and over. I just like show tunes. And I just like Renaissance era Disney songs, or at least people's takes on them, their new takes on them. And they already greenlit this show for like 4 seasons, or 4 more new seasons. I think or at least 2 more, but I'm sure they're going to keep. It had like the biggest debut and some of the highest numbers for like any animated series on Amazon. So pretty successful. I'm really looking forward to season 2, which I think might come out sometime this year. But yeah, if you're a fan of Hell of a Boss, if you like Disney Renaissance era stuff, if you like 2D animation, you're going to get a lot of this one. But at number 6, I do have Terminator Zero, which is the animated sequel spinoff to the Terminator franchise. And listen, the Terminator franchise has not been doing well for the last several decades. Last 2 decades. Like, really the last good Terminator movie was Terminator 2 Judgment Day. And then every sequel after that, you just had it was just them trying to do Terminator 2 over again. And like the last two entries in the franchise were some of the worst. Terminator Genesis and Terminator Dark Fate. Hated those movies. And at this point, like the Terminator franchise is like basically been put on ice. They don't know what to do with it, at least theatrically. But with this, I thought it was smart. Like, all right, well, let's take the Terminator franchise and just apply it to a different medium altogether, an animated TV series. Although you did have the Sarah Connor Chronicles, let me give them a shout out. They were outside of the first two movies, and the show. The Sarah Connor Chronicles was doing something unique and was pretty successful, at least what I watched of it. But with this movie, or excuse me, with this series, this takes place in the late 90s, literally days before Judgment Day, and it mostly focuses on this family living in Japan, and this father of these kids trying to prevent Judgment Day, or at the very least prepare for it. And he has designed a new artificial intelligence called Kokoro, which is like, to rival Skynet, which I think is like a really cool and interesting idea. I think the Sarah Connor Chronicles kind of dealt with that before, but again, we hadn't seen that in a while, so it stood out to me and it was very unique. And it was just a show that didn't feel like it needed to just constantly bring up the Connors of it all, constantly do the same things over and over and over again, like, whether it be the catchphrases or certain action scenes. It took the aesthetics, it took the music of the franchise, but it provided us with new, interesting characters, and also a cool setting. It's like, yes, some of the show does take place like in the dark, future, where Judgment Day has happened and the machines have taken control and have exterminated humanity. But I like that it took place in Japan, because you do have the whole situation. It adheres more to the sensibilities of the first film, where it's more of a horror movie, where you send back this Terminator to this place, but unlike in America, where you can get firearms like across the goddamn street, you can open a bank account, they give you a goddamn shotgun. In Japan, like, they have strict gun laws there, they have strict weapon laws. So how is a Terminator able to get these weapons? And they explore that, and I thought that was really cool and really interesting, and it stood out to me. It did something that the Terminator franchise has not done in a while. Something new, something refreshing. And I ended up really, really enjoying it. And let's get to my top 5. At number 5, I have Arcane. Now, Arcane Season 1 was just like my favorite thing that came out, I think, back in 2021. Just new piece of entertainment, of media story. I loved it. It was my, whether it be movie, TV show, video game, book, it was just my favorite thing. I thought it was, I think it's the best video game adaptation we've ever gotten. Of course, it's an adaptation of the League of Legends, MOBA video game series, which I may or may not have played back in the day, or at least something similar to that. But in any case, what's so great about Arcane is you don't need to know. That's the best kind of adaptation, where you don't need to have had played the games to understand what's going on. The filmmakers, they just create such a wonderful world in this series, where you have these two cities, or this one city of Piltover, this utopian megapolis, and you have the undercity of Zaun, and you have the various characters that live in both worlds and constantly clash with each other, and it just basically created a powder keg. And we're introduced to a ton of characters, from these sisters, Jinx and Vi, and watching them grow up and going through all their difficulties and troubles, and eventually being split apart and forced to fight one another. And it basically sets up seemingly this war in season 2, after Jinx does something quite horrific, which forces the hands of the powers that be of Piltover. And listen, I really enjoyed season 2 of Arcane. It looks much like in season 1. It looked absolutely gorgeous. The voice acting across the board was great. Just incredible level of spectacle and maturity. Some great individual moments between characters. They're emotional moments. If I have a complaint about the show, is that I feel like they could have expanded on some of these stories. There was some stuff where I felt like, I feel like you need to do more here, because I'm kind of confused as to like what's going on with this character or that character. Like, I think we need another season of Arcane. And listen, we're going to get more we're going to get more spin-offs of Arcane. Some people are saying like, oh, that's it, Arcane's over. It's like, I think they're going to do more with Arcane, and they absolutely are. They're going to do that. But I still wish they expanded more. We at least got more episodes for this particular season. But still, like, what we got, I thought was great. I really enjoyed the storytelling and the animation across the board. It's it's one of the prettiest looking shows I've seen all year. And moving on from number 5, I have at 4 Fallout, another video game adaptation. Of course, this video game adaptation is an adaptation of the Fallout video game series, taking more of the sensibilities and aesthetics from some of the more recent games, like Fallout 3 and Fallout 4 and Fallout New Vegas. And this is a news story that takes place within the world of the game, where you follow several characters. One character played by Elle Purnell, who's this vault dweller, where's the society of like hundreds of vaults across the country and Canada in this post-apocalyptic future. They're trying to maintain little communes and eventually come out of their vaults and spread civilization to society. But I don't know if society wants their version of civilization. And she goes on a quest to rescue our father, played by Colin McLaughlin, after he's kidnapped. You also have You also have Aaron Motten, who plays a Brotherhood of Steel initiate, which is this society, which is this organization in the world of Fallout that like covets and tries to acquire pieces of post-war technology to enrich themselves and make themselves more powerful. He ends up, getting himself into trouble and comes upon Elle Purnell's character, and that they team up throughout the events of the series. And then you also have Walton Goggins, who kind of plays an interesting role in the film, where you see a lot of what the pre-war stuff of Fallout was, which we kind of get like bits and pieces of in the game series, but not a lot. This is the first time we get a good sense of what the pre-war world was like. And then we also get to see him hundreds of years later, after surviving the events of the nuclear devastation, and he's like this bounty hunter who's a ghoul, like someone who has become so irradiated but has survived and is has higher durability, is able to withstand copious amounts of radiation. And we're just going back and forth between all these different stories, and it's a really funny show. It has the same aesthetic sensibilities of the original video game series. And again, much like Arcane, if you haven't played Fallout, it's okay, because I think they do a great job of acclimating you to this world. It's just a really fun, bloody, gritty, well-acted, well-produced, post-apocalyptic adventure series, and cannot wait for the next season. And moving on, my top three best TV shows of 2024. At number 3, I have X-Men 97. Now, my first exposure to X-Men was the original 90s X-Men the Animated Series. Same with Batman. Like, those are the two shows that kind of introduced me to superheroes, right? And I became a huge X-Men fan, collecting the comics and everything, then obviously eventually watching the movies. And there's been other X-Men adaptations that I've enjoyed. Like, I really enjoyed X-Men Evolution. Thought that was great. I also really like Wolverine the X-Men. But then when it was announced that Marvel wanted to do a sequel series to X-Men, the original 90s, I was like, okay, I'm sure that sounds fun. That'll be great to see all these characters. They're going to bring back a lot of the original voice actors. It was going to have, like, even though the animation was going to be improved, it's going to have, like, the same aesthetic as the original 90s show. I thought, like, it's going to be cool. It's going to be a nice nostalgic romp with the X-Men. And, of course, being able to use that original X-Men music, which is just iconic. Like, as soon as you hear it, it's just, X-Men, of course. I did not expect this show to be as good as it is, as great, as amazing as it is. And, like, those first 4 episodes, like, wow, this is being well done. The animation is gorgeous. I'm loving the back and forth between all these characters. Like, the X-Men, it's very much a soap opera. It's like a bunch of weird people living in this one house under this one roof from all different walks of life and having to deal with all these, threats around the world into mutant kind. But I just didn't expect how mature and dark this series would get. And those that know, those that saw episode 5, that was a cultural TV moment where everyone that watched that episode went, "Oh my God, I never thought you would go there." And I mean, the X-Men have always tackled, discrimination and racism, it through their stories and other socio-political, themes. But what they do in that episode and what they continue to do throughout this, I mean, tackling genocide on a mass scale, it's incredibly impressive. On an emotional level, too. It's what it is, and it's my favorite kind of sequel to an animated show that I grew up watching. It's made by people that love the original show, that have an incredible respect and fondness for the source material, but they also keep in mind that the audience that watch this is now grown up. And so we're going to age up this show. This show is going to grow up with them now. And I just thought I just didn't expect them to do that. And I thought it was so special. And that's why it's my third best TV show of 2024. It ends in a really cool way where it sets up for season 2 and future seasons. I'm very excited to see where they're going to go. I'm a little concerned, though, because some of the same writing team's not going to be a part of those seasons now, which I'm like, that has me a little worried. Matter of fact, I think like the writers are going to be, for season 3, are going to be the writers for like What If season 3, which apparently is awful. So I'm just like, I don't know about that. But what I can say is season 1 was fantastic. I recently also just kind of revisited in a way where I've been doing edited reactions for my Chris J. Herman Reacts YouTube channel. And I was just reminded of like just how great this show was. And again, the conversations, like the conversations these characters have like in the show is great. Just one of the biggest surprises of the year. A very nice surprise. And here we go, chat, the top 2. At number 2, I have The Penguin. Now, I was already really looking forward to this show when it was first announced. Obviously, it's the sequel spinoff to Matt Reeves' The Batman, which was one of my favorite movies of 2022. I love that film. I love they really leaned into the dark, detective aspects of Batman. They've really done that before theatrically. They've done other adaptations like Batman Animated Series, of course, but none of the movies really lean into him being a fucking detective. And that movie did. And I was like, I really appreciate that. I thought Robert Pattinson did a great job. The whole cast was wonderful. But one of the big standouts, despite their limited screen time, was Colin Farrell as Oswald, as the Penguin, nicknamed the Penguin for his little waddle. And even though he has only a couple scenes in that movie, you're like, wow, he's just so good. The makeup on, you don't even recognize him under all that makeup, and it looks good. Too, it looks real. And so when it was announced that they want to do a spinoff, they want to continue this universe, in between, Batman Part 2, I thought, let's see what this is. And again, much like X-Men 97, I was just so shocked by how great this show was. It feels like a spiritual successor to The Sopranos, where it's dealing with the criminal elements, the mobs, the crime families of Gotham City. And it's also just a character study of the Penguin, of Oswald Cobb, they dropped the pot, they kept the Cobb, of Oswald Cobb in his life, exploring his childhood relationship with this young kid, played by Renzi Feliz, who does a great job. They takes off the streets and has work for him as he's trying to undermine all these families, all these mob families, and gain power for himself. And also explores his relationship with his mother, played by Dedry O'Connell, who does gives a wonderful performance in this show. But then you also have another aspect of it that I just didn't expect, where you have the daughter of Carmine Falcone, Sophia Falcone, played by Kristen Milotti, who has been in stuff before. We've seen her in other things. I think for you guys, my audience, probably best known for playing the first wife of Leonardo DiCaprio in The Wolf of Wall Street. But I think for a lot of people, this is their first proper introduction to her. She does an amazing job on the same level as Colin Farrell as the Penguin. We explore her history, how she was spent the last 10 years in Arkham Asylum, and we find out as to why. But yeah, it's a show that is so well written, is borrows from, certainly adapts a lot of the material from the Batman comics, and like another wonderful Penguin story called Penguin Pain and Prejudice, which there's so many elements from that incorporated in this story. I thought was great. But the other thing is, but it very much is an extension of those mob shows like The Sopranos. And unlike The Sopranos, it has one of the best finales that I've seen in 2024. Like, I was so concerned because the thing is, like, the show makes you like Oz. Like, he's despicable. He does some nasty things, but you see these softer sides of him with these characters that he interacts with. But how they handle him at the end of the show, they don't pull any punches. They don't make him like, well, yeah, he's a villain, but he's a hero of the people. It's like, no. By the end of the show, he's a fucking monster, as he should be. And they could have easily just, like, nah, he's, we're going to make him a good guy, which is so often the case. Like, there's a lot of examples, like, for the last few years, of we're going to take our villains, but then they're not going to be really villainous. It's like Sony. They could have gone down the dark path of Sony, where we're going to take this villain like Kraven the Hunter, Morbius, or Venom, but now we're going to turn them into anti-heroes or heroes. And they don't do that with the Penguin. They don't do that at all. And I respected the hell out of them for doing that. And a huge shout out to the writers on that show and the showrunner, Lauren LaFranc. I know a lot of people give Matt Reeves credit for this, and he deserves it. I mean, the Batman is obviously his baby. I'm very excited what he's going to do. But Lauren LaFranc, I want to see her do more DC stuff. I hope she's brought into the James Gunn fold, because I'd love to see her other takes on these criminals in Gotham City, or at least a continuation of the Penguin. But yeah, what a great show, and another huge surprise from 2024. But at number one, this probably comes as no surprise to those who've been following my content, or just people that cover TV in general. But at number one, I have Shogun, which when this was announced that this was going, first of all, it's coming from FX, who puts out some of the best TV shows every single year, whether it be dramas or comedies. But this is an epic historical drama series that is an adaptation of the 1975 historical epic by James Cleveland, which was originally adapted into a series in the 1980s that won a ton of awards and was beloved. This is basically a remake of that. And now, to be fair, I have never seen the original 80s miniseries. I want to check it out someday, but I've never seen the original 80s miniseries. I haven't read the book, though. Watching the show makes me want to do that. This show is just kind of perfect across the board. From its production values to its aesthetics, the storytelling, the characters, where we are following this huge ensemble cast of characters. You have Hiroki Sanada, who you've seen in so many projects throughout the years, throughout the decades. He's been working since he was a little kid. Who plays this Japanese lord who is basically surrounded by all these enemies. Like the shogun has died, and you have all these people who are vying for power, want to push him out because he was so close to the shogun for so many years, and they view him as an enemy. And he's been pushed out, and so he's kind of on his heels, if you will. He's trying to conspire of all of his loyal subjects. At the same time, you have this Englishman and his crew that crash, that are end up washed up on the beaches of Japan. And they have this individual, the pilot, basically the leader of these guys, because so many people died on the ship. Played by Cosmo Jarvis, and he's the audience avatar character. We are seeing so much of the show through his eyes, introduced to this incredibly foreign culture and their various ways. At the same time, we have this very trusted confidant, Haruki Sanada's character, played by Anna Sawe, and who is also is very meticulous and knows the ins and outs of the court and the power structure of Japan, who also becomes very close with Cosmo Jarvis's character. And you have a lot of other great characters in this show. You have another conspiring Japanese lord and underling to Sanada, played by Tanobu Asano, who is very funny. Unlike all of his other Japanese lords and warriors and things, and just he's very different. he's more Western in his approach, and there's a lot of comedy with his character in a great way that fits the scene. But yeah, I mean, I hate to compare it to this because everyone uses it, but if you liked Game of Thrones, and the Game of Thrones at its best when it was about the politicking and the backstabbing and all that, and these really intense, passionate, fascinating conversations between all these characters, and just like week to week, like how are we going to get out of this situation? What's the steps that need to be taken to achieve, a complete victory? You're going to love this show. Plus, it just looks fucking gorgeous across the board. It's beautiful art direction, production design, the costumes. It's just every shot's a picture in this show, and it's just complemented by really wonderful storytelling and fantastic performances across the board. I ended up really enjoying Shogun, and that's why it's my best TV show of 2024. But what about you guys? I'm curious, what was your favorite TV show 24? What are your top 10 best TV shows of the past year? Let me know.
5 minutes later.
Big boys, some of my favorites this year were Ted, Hazbin Hotel, Creature Commandos, Shogun, Fallout, Moon Girl, and Devil Dinosaur. Season 2. Invincible, Fight Girl, Adventures of Superman. Oh my God, I forgot about My Adventures of Superman. Oh! Oh, no. Oh, Jesus. Oh, God. I forgot about My Adventures with I knew I forgot something. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, no. Hold on. All right. Shame on me. I forgot about My Adventures of Superman Season 2. I can't believe I forgot. I think I mentioned this on my best shows of 2024 so far. I knew I'd forget something. My apologies. So this list, it's on the list. I don't know exactly where it would be. Bottom 6, bottom 5, top 5. It's there. It's somewhere there. And yeah, listen, you guys know I'm a big fan of DC animation. And I'm a big fan of Superman. I feel like Superman has not been treated well over these last few years, especially when it comes to theatrically. Hopefully that will change. But one of my favorite Superman adaptations in quite some time was My Adventures of Superman, where the first season is very different. It's very unique. Where it's the style and the aesthetics. It's like an anime, which is very different from Superman overall, because we're just used to kind of the Western animation style. But much like Superman's of the past in the comics, it leans into the foundational elements of Superman, where he's a very forthright character. He is passionate about his family and his friends. He wants to do right by them, and he's growing into becoming Superman, and he's struggling with that. Kind of at the forefront of the show is his relationship with Lois Lane. I mean, that's what the whole show is. My Adventures of Superman is referring to Lois Lane's adventures with Superman, and that's one of the best aspects of this series is their romance, which, starts in season 1 and carries into season 2. You also have Superman Clark Kent, Kal-El's relationship with Jimmy Olsen, that they've known each other since college. And just the three of them, I think, are just very adorable. They have a wonderful dynamic. And season 2, it's a continuation of a lot of the stories that were introduced in season 1. We're introduced to, or reintroduced to certain characters. We come to learn this kind of recurring character in season 1 is actually Lex Luthor, which causes a lot of issues in season 2. And we see the return of several notable villains from the first season, although presented in different ways. But at the heart of this particular season, certainly in the back half, the last 5 or so episodes, it focuses on Supergirl, on Kara Zor-El, one of the last surviving Kryptonians, the cousin of Superman. And her arriving to Earth trying to find her cousin. And you think it's like, well, much in the same way it was in maybe other adaptations before. They're reunite, they're the last of their kind. They want to be together, be as a family. And no, she's actually been raised by Brainiac, who is absolutely insane in this series, and wants to take Superman and basically turn him into a weapon, really repurpose him for his own nefarious means. And we just get a sense of the really disturbing relationship, the father-daughter relationship between Brainiac and Kara Zor-El, Supergirl, in this series. That was great. It's the animation across the board is wonderful. And again, it's not like, Lois Lane, Jimmy Olsen are just always in the background, like needing to be saved. Like they give stuff for them to do. They're very proactive in the show. And all of it just results in on a back half of episodes. Like the first 5 are great. But those back half, those last 5 are absolutely fantastic. I just love how when you're immediately introduced to Brainiac, like you can tell, like something's wrong with this guy. Like he's muttering to himself, he's laughing. You can tell like his programming has gone haywire. Like he's defective. And they also go into like what's really happened to Krypton, and it's also very similar to, again, one of my other favorite depictions in adaptations of Superman of all time, the DCAU Superman, where Brainiac was a creation of Krypton itself, and, well, things went awry because of what that creation chose to do. And, I'm so sorry I forgot to mention My Adventures of Superman. It is absolutely on my top 10 list at some point. It's somewhere around there. It's a wonderful show. And I feel so bad that I didn't feature on my top 10 list. But thank you for mentioning that. And like you, Deadpool, I want a My Adventure universe so bad. Like I feel like this could be it establishes a great foundation, because they reference other things. They reference Gotham City. There's some Gotham characters that are in this show, and they mentioned some other places too in the DC universe. There's Green Lanterns, and there's Coast City, and there's some other recognizable characters. And I think if they did a My Adventures universe, that'd be great. So you can do My Adventures of Batman, but it's like from Robin's perspective. I think that'd be so cool. You could do My Adventures of Wonder Woman, and it's from Steve Trevor's perspective. You could do My Adventures of the Justice League, build up to that. You can have like a new DCAU. And I'd love to see that. But yeah, the thing about this show that's so good, as I've said before, it adheres to the foundational elements of Superman, and it changes the aesthetics. It changes some of the villain designs and their origins. Like, that's fine. You can do all that. And I think the show succeeds for the most part, all of those things. It makes them stand out. Like, I love what they do with Brainiac. It's a very different take on him, but it's great. But they do not depart from the things that have defined Superman for decades. And that's why it succeeds. Okay? That's why it succeeds. So, My Adventures of Superman is fantastic. And I should have featured this on my top 10 list, and I feel bad that I didn't. But this is going to get a nice, very, very nice high praise at the end of this video, as it should.
5 minutes later.
It slipped my mind. I was putting together all these things, and I just Fox Machina. Oh my God. Okay. All right. Hold on. Hey, so I forgot another show. So I've been a big fan of The Legend of Vox Machina. It's going on, obviously, it had its 3rd season, this past year in 2024. And it's an adaptation of the web series Critical Role, which is basically they just play, Dungeons and Dragons live, and it has a lot of notable voice actors that are involved, like, Matt Mercer's the Dungeon Master, and you have like Laura Bailey, and then you have, Travis Willingham and Ashley Johnson, a lot of very talented folks. And eventually it was adapted to an animated series. It's been going on for 3 seasons, and I've loved every single season. I would say I think the 3rd season is the best season of the series, so far. One, just because it's a little darker than the previous 2 seasons, where, the first season dealt with, like, one of the main characters, Percy DeRollo, and his family and his history, and getting, revenge, of course, and should he even seek revenge against, like, the Briarwoods. And then, like, season 2 introduced these villains, this conspiracy of where, these dragons are trying to gain power, and they revealed themselves as the Chroma Conclave, and they laid waste to this land. And Vox Machina, for both season 2 and season 3, are basically trying to get these vestments of power in order to go up against this dragon group, the Chroma Conclave. And throughout the entire season, especially in this season, like they're doing just that. They're going to new locations, but they're also dealing with a lot of their various issues of each other, whether it be romance or friction within the group itself, and just struggling with this huge thing that's been placed upon them, and if they're ready to go up against these incredibly dangerous enemies, and also enemies from the past that come in really, cool, interesting ways. And I think like the thing about this season I think works for me is I think you give something for everyone to do. Someone gets, something to do in this particular season. No one feels particularly neglected. You have some great moments. The animation across the board is gorgeous. Great character arcs. It kind of wraps a lot of things up. Obviously, we're going to get a 4th season because they hinted something all the way back from season 1 that's finally coming back, which is really exciting. But yeah, I also the use of humor too, because some of the humor in like Vox Machina season 1, season 2, sometimes it was hit and miss. Sometimes it was really funny. Sometimes it was like, yeah, whatever. But this is where I think the humor's been used best. It just feels like the writing is just meaner and leaner, and they know exactly what they're doing with these characters and where they're going with them. And I feel like they execute their stories very, very well. And you have so many funny moments, heartfelt moments, just epic, just like, wow, what they do with some of the action scenes and choreography. And the animation is gorgeous across the board. If you're a lover of 2D animation, there's a lot to love here. He also features one of the last performances by Lance Reddick, who voices one of the main villains of the series, Thordak, this fire dragon, this red fire dragon. They do great stuff with him. And yeah, I really love this season. And another show, Vestiges. I call them, I forget what they're called. Vestiges of Divergence. The Vestigals. We got to get the Vestigals, as Grog would say. But yeah, I love Vox Machina season 3, and I highly recommend it. Again, it's another show that I forgot to mention, much like My Major Superman season 2. But you should check it out. But before you check it out, check out the first 2 seasons. And the thing is, the last thing I'll say about this is, even though it's an adaptation of, like, it sounds intimidating. It's like, it's a D&D adaptation, and it's an adaptation of a web series. The thing is, you can go into this show not knowing either of those things. It's just a really fun fantasy animated series. It just works on that level. And that's when you know you have a great adaptation where you can please both fans of the original material, whether it be Dungeons & Dragons fans or Critical Role fans, or people that just like fantasy or animation. It accomplishes all those things. It executes them very well. So the last one I will mention is The Legend of Vox Machina Season 3. It's a wonderful show. But what about you guys? What do you think about Legend of Vox Machina Season 3? Hope that made sense. Oh, Lordy.